Rick Goddard on ABC Radio Hobart.
Dr. David Burton is a sleep expert. How do you keep your sleep really healthy? Hi, David.
Good morning.
What are the 5 phases of sleep? I thought there were kind of 2.
Well, actually, there's, in terms of the stages, there's really 4 stages. Wake, of course, if you can be the 5th, but stage 1 is the first stage of entering sleep. Stage 2, 3, and then REM. And REM is like dream sleep. Interestingly, what's recognised as the most important physiologically and mentally is that the deep sleep and the dream sleep, brain recovery, and then deep sleep, body recovery. So they're typically the 4. And if we don't get enough of those, to complicate things a little bit more, these phases come in 3 or 4 cycles a night. And for good quality or healthy sleep, one needs to have the right amount and the right of each stage. And we need to, of course, not have too much fragmentation, which can also cause problems.
So if you're up and down all night, what does that mean you're likely to be missing out on?
Well, clearly sleep and clearly quality sleep. So it is a problem, and there's a lot of people out there that suffer some degree of insomnia. In fact, in the order of 30% of the population have some type of insomnia. And then we have sleep disorders. There's actually 81 sleep disorders. Now, not to put everyone in panic, most of these are manageable, can be diagnosed, and certainly virtually all of them can be improved.
How many cycles a night do you need? Speaking as someone who often gets not that many hours.
Yeah, well, look, one thing that's important to understand is that you actually need the quality of sleep more than anything, and it's recommended that we have about 8 hours sleep. Now, this can vary plus or minus an hour over various factors, age, life cycle, but generally, if we don't get our typical 8 hours sleep, we don't get that recovery time, and that's required for health. To give you an example, I mentioned to you with the deep sleep, dream sleep. In that particular phase, if we don't have that disrupted, and that can be disrupted in a number of ways, as I mentioned, that could be a sleep disorder, or it could be something that's such as insomnia, or even stress. And in your case, Rick, shift work, that can play havoc. If that's disrupted, ultimately it does lead to consequences if it's a long-term situation. The majority of people with bipolar or anxiety or depression, mental disorders, for example, also have sleep problems. So we have to take it fairly serious. Another example on the physical side, when I mentioned to you, you need to have that deep sleep, which is stage 3 sleep. These are stages that are body states and brain states. And what we do at Compumedics is we make the diagnostic systems that enable clinics to not only monitor the states of sleep and the structure, and they can be monitored. Our systems also can be used for home sleep services. And the reason we provide this equipment is if you don't have that quality sleep, you've got a situation even with the immune system where you can have 4 times studies have shown the susceptibility to the common cold because of the suppression of the immune system. So extremely important that we're conscious of it. And this week, being sleep awareness, is an opportunity, I think, just to remind people that, sleep is not an optional phase. It's that third of our life, which is really the third pillar of health, along with nutrition and exercise. But it's not the optional one. It's arguably the most important one because it impacts everything we do and how we feel.
So if you're in a position where, you can't necessarily get great quality sleep, you've got an illness that's getting you up and down or chronic pain or whatever, are there ways to compensate? How much can napping compensate for missed phases of sleep?
Well, it's an interesting one because many of us are aware of the classic tales of Winston Churchill only requiring, for example, I think it was 4 hours sleep, and what a great legend and hero that man was. But we shouldn't take that too far because he also was renowned for having naps. And the general research shows that clearly if we can have the first thing is, we have to have regular sleep patterns, and there's reasons for that, which we can go into later. But if we can't have regular sleep and continuous sleep, it's still better to supplement sleep restriction with naps. The reason it's recommended to have the regular continuous sleep is that our bodies are wired to have a certain period of a 24-hour cycle that we have the sleep drive. And our bodies are also wired to be more conducive to sleep in a certain period if we understand, our bodies. And it's for most people, most individuals this is. But so I'll give you an example. When we wake up in the morning, when we see the light, and at night time, before we go to bed, we really should treat the natural light and bright light in a manner where it synchronises with our body's expectation for sleep. So when you wake up in the morning, bright lights, for example, help to reset the brain, or at least signal to the brain that particular sleep cycle. It's called circadian rhythms. And there's two forces or general functions of the body. One is there's an internal clock, which is our biological clock, which in normal individuals that haven't disrupted their cycles or put them out of sync, that will mean they go to bed typically routine times each night, and when they hit the pillow, within 10 to 15 minutes, they can sleep because the sleep drive kicks in. But it's easy, as you know, with jet lag and particularly around the radio stations, shift work.
Well, and split shifts, I suppose, are the absolute worst, aren't they? Because they're jiggling your body up the time. So if you can be at least regular. We've only got a couple of minutes left, David. What about things that help you sleep? What helps? Like, is a glass of warm milk good for you? What about some booze? What about melatonin?
Yeah. Well, they're good questions. Just for a quick overview, there's things that we can all do in terms of sleep hygiene. Now, sleep hygiene is how we manage our own personalised sleep. And then there's more, if someone has sleep disorders and is following these general sleep hygienes, and I'll go through those techniques, they can speak to their doctor, and their doctors will know a sleep physician, and if necessary, make a recommendation. Typically, when we go to a doctor, we can run through some common surveys that are recognised for detecting sleepiness, as well as, for example, sleep-disordered breathing. 1 in 5 people suffer sleep-disordered breathing. And then the doctor might recommend you to one of these sleep labs that I mentioned where, such as the Compumedics monitoring, that'll detect the brain and physiological signals during the sleep cycle and produce a report which covers the majority of those 81 potential sleep disorders. That's if sleep problems persist after at least trying some of these common sleep hygiene techniques. For example, in terms of hygiene, limiting daytime naps to 30 minutes so it doesn't disrupt the clock, the internal clock, as we discussed. Avoiding stimulants is fairly obvious, like coffee too late in the afternoon is going to play havoc with sleep onset. Exercising, which promotes good quality sleep. Steering clear of food that can cause disruptions during the night. Ensuring adequate exposure to natural light, which we also discussed, Rick, in the morning, reset with natural light, that internal clock. And at night time, avoid exposure to computer devices, particularly in this modern age when we're tended to look at screens. They have a blue light, and that also disrupts the internal clock, which a lot of people don't understand. That is a major no. Keep them away these devices from the bedroom, and particularly half an hour to an hour before sleep. Establish a regular, relaxing bedtime routine that we discussed, and making sure that the sleep environment is pleasant and cool. There's a thermoregulatory function, for example. If the room's too hot, then that can play havoc with your internal thermoregulatory function that allows you to sleep. So there are some basic things, and naturally, as I said, see a GP, discuss it with the doctor if it persists, because it will have an impact on your health, long-term and even medium-term, mental and physical.
Cold bedroom one is an interesting one for couples to have a go at. Good luck with that at home. David, great to talk to you this morning.
Fantastic. Nice to talk to you.
David Burton, sleep expert.